Eagle fans, it's EaglefanKarl. This is going to be my preview prediction video for the game tomorrow afternoon against the Seattle Seahawks. As we head out west for a real tough matchup against the NFC West leading Seahawks, who also have one of the best home advantages in football in terms of the noise and everything. So this is going to be a real test, I think, for our offense, especially for Carson Wentz, as he's never really faced anything like this. So I think it's really going to be incumbent on Doug Peterson to make sure his play calling is the best that it's been all season. Because of that, I really would like to see them stick with the same game plan that we had against the Falcons, which was continuing to run the ball. I think we finally sort of established our identity last week as a team, which is play good defense and run the ball, eat up the clock, and continue to move the chains so we can get down and get in scoring position and keep their offense off the field as well. So I think that's sort of got to be the same game plan we got to go with in this game as well, especially given the factors that you're going to be dealing with in Seattle with their crowd noise and potential weather as well that you have to deal with. In terms of where the Seattle's defense stands, they are 9th in overall yardage, and in terms of pass versus run, they're 10th against the pass, they're 9th against the run, so they're pretty solid across the board. Their defense probably isn't quite as good as it was a couple years ago, but it's still a very solid defense. Those rankings in terms of pass and run and yards given up translate then into them being 2nd in points allowed. So they are very stingy in terms of giving up points, and they do not give up many yards as well. So this is going to be a game where we're really going to have to try and take advantage when we do get opportunities and make sure that we're putting points on the board. We cannot afford mistakes when we get into even field goal range. We've got to take advantage of every possibility that we've got. All that said, their offense really isn't that scary. Their offense is pretty pedestrian, and in many respects, they're very similar to Atlanta, who we faced last week, or even Minnesota a couple weeks ago, where their offensive line is struggling a bit. The only difference with this game, I think, as opposed to the other two games, is Russell Wilson is a much more mobile quarterback than Matt Ryan or Sam Bradford. So from that perspective, even if their offensive line isn't doing the best at pass blocking, he's much better at getting out of that and then making a play out of the pocket. So I think that that's something we've got to be concerned about, is making sure that they keep him contained. And if you're going to get sacks, you better get him quick against this guy, because if not, he's going to be able to make a play and get down the field either with his legs or throwing the ball, finding a receiver by buying some time. Overall on offense, they're 20th in the league in yardage. And their breakdown, though, is very lopsided. They are 11th in passing yards, but 30th in rushing yards. So they have really had a hard time establishing a running game this week. They even let go of Christine Michael, who was the running back who had been getting the bulk of their carries. They let him go. So, I mean, obviously, I don't think they really have much confidence in their running game. And when they've been able to score points, it has been through the air. All that translates in terms of the passing versus rushing yards to them being 21st in points scored this year. So their offense has been a little below average, but they don't need to be that great when you've got the defense that the Seahawks do. So the Seahawks' real game plan is to let their offense make a few plays here and there and basically let their defense win games for them. And I think that's sort of the same approach we need to have as well. Once again, I would really emphasize, if I were Doug Peterson, the running game. Here's an interesting stat. Last week when I was breaking down the Falcons game, I pointed out that the Falcons were 7th in the league against the run. But if you look at the stats this week, after last week's game when we put up over 200 yards of offense on the ground against them, they dropped down to 16th. So they took quite a bit of a stumble. So if you look at the Seahawks defense, right now it looks like, hey, they're good against the run. But if we really commit to the run like we did last week, I think we can still potentially move the ball against Seattle that way, especially given the scenario that we're going to be faced with. So that's the game plan I would take into this game. Ultimately, I really don't like this matchup, though. I think it's just a one step too far. Like I said, these games are similar to the Atlanta and the Vikings games. In terms of the way our defense matches up against their offense, but really when it comes down to it, there's a huge difference at quarterback for those teams. But Sam Bradford or Matt Ryan aren't good quarterbacks, but I really think that when you look at them, they're a very different type of quarterback than Russell Wilson is. So I really don't like the matchup from that perspective. Also, when you look at the number of sacks given up by both teams, the Seahawks are 10th in the league in terms of sacks surrendered this year. So they're not giving up many sacks, despite some of the issues they've had on offense. And I think a lot of that is attributable to Russell Wilson and his ability to be mobile in the pocket. So I really think that that's sort of a difference. And Seattle also, they struggled a little bit early this season, but they have a tendency to sort of get stronger as the season goes on. And I really think that that's they're finally starting to get their groove. I will say this, I think the Eagles can win this game. Seattle is coming off a huge win on Sunday night against the New England Patriots. So there is the possibility for a letdown. But I think Seattle is just too strong when they're playing at home. So for that reason, I am going to go ahead, pick the Seahawks to win this game. My prediction for the game is Seahawks 20, Eagles 16. Go ahead, leave your comments below. Let me know what your prediction for the score is. Do you think we have a chance to win this game? Is there no hope against a team like Seattle? Or are you convinced that we're absolutely going to win this game and you're convinced beyond anything that there's no way we lose this thing? Let me know in the comments below what you think. Give me your prediction. I'll go ahead, obviously, check in after the game and let you know what I thought. Until then, fly Eagles fly.